So welcome everybody to how to make mental health a priority at work. It's so wonderful to have you all here today, and particularly in alignment with World Mental Health Day. So a very significant date on the mental health calendar. So we're very busy this week with lots of deliveries, and I'm so excited to be here today to support you all with this facilitation on how to make mental health a priority at work. So just as a bit of context, so my name is Tania Diggory. I'm the founder and director of Karma. We are a global award-winning mental health and wellbeing training organisation based in the UK, and we support workplaces, entrepreneurs, business teams with burnout prevention techniques and strategies and nurturing good mental health. So that's a really big passion of ours, that we really champion that message of mental wellness and looking after, nurturing and supporting your mental health and well-being. So it's great to see some familiar names and some new ones today joining. And so today we're going to go through, and we're just about to share a presentation with you. How do you make mental health a priority at work? Because there's no doubt about it, mental health is becoming increasingly vitally important, not just in our work lives, but in our lives in general, to focus on, to really prioritize and make sure that we are making time to nurture our mental health and well-being. So if I'm just about to share my screen with you all, just bear with me, and really looking forward to getting into this as well. So hopefully you can see that. Is that all good? Little thumbs up? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so if we just bear with me, a few little techie bits. There we go. Just start with what the learning outcomes are for this session. So the purpose of today is to help you to feel well informed, to explore the latest statistics on mental health at work as well, to help you understand the difference between stress and burnout and ways to prevent it from escalating, because that is also really crucially important, and ideas for empowering your workplace to embed a mental health strategy and boost wellness at work. So just one more little adjustment, apologies, from a tech perspective, gotta love it. Okay. There we go. So those are the outcomes from today that I want for you all. So starting with a quote by Bruce Daisley, we had the pleasure of interviewing Bruce as well, which you can find on our podcast, which is called Take Regular Breaks. That's on our website. And so he's the author of Eat, Sleep, Work, Repeat. He's also a podcast host. He says that culture needs to be considered holistically when it comes to the workplace. It needs to be a way to reduce burnout, reward workers well, and to give them scope to thrive in a role. Work shouldn't just artificially present itself as meaningful. It needs to honestly deliver meaning. Our relationship with work is transforming. Organizations who want to create differentiated, motivated environments are going to have to think harder to achieve something special. Okay, so again, it's just a little tech thing. Just bear with me. I just need to come out of the screen for a moment. But how does that resonate with you? Because it's just so important and timely, isn't it? So bear with me. I'm so sorry about that beginning part. It's not ideal, but now hopefully it will behave itself. Some things you can't control, hey? Right. So how does that resonate with you? Thinking about meaning, thinking about what the wider scope of mental health at work actually really means and looks like. So we're looking at a new era of work now, emerging into the hybrid era of working. So there's lots of considerations to bring into place here. And one thing I just want to pay attention to and recognize what's been happening in recent years, which has led us to this point where mental health is such a growing priority at work, is something called the Great Resignation and quiet quitting. Now, the Great Resignation, again, if you go on our YouTube channel, you can find last year we actually hosted a panel discussion on this very topic of how many people were suddenly exiting their roles at work and looking for different types of opportunities, also seeking different types of work that creates different levels of meaning for them. Also quiet quitting has come about in the last sort of year or so as well. So really, there's been so many different reports that have also come out in recent years around mental health at work, and a Gallup report on sort of the global workplace highlights that well-being and engagement interact with each other in so powerful ways. Okay, so the reality is that when employees are engaged and thriving, they experience significantly less stress, anger, and health problems. But unfortunately, most employees remain disengaged at work. And this is what we've been seeing through the Great Resignation and quiet quitting. I'm going to elaborate on the quiet quitting in a moment. So low engagement alone costs the global economy $7.8 trillion. The relationship between well-being and engagement is vital because how people experience work influences their lives outside of work, and overall well-being influences life at work. So the two are interconnected. So it's no longer good enough really to sort of look at them as two separate entities, right? Because we are whole beings, and even though we're coming to work to do a job and we're trying to deliver for the organization we work for, the reality is that we have lots going on in our lives in general as well that could be impacting how we are and how effective we feel at work. So organizations really need to think about the whole person, not just the worker. And leaders must really add well-being measurements to their plans and prioritize employee well-being as part of their employer brand promise. So let's talk a little bit about what quiet quitting is. I'm not sure if anyone has heard of this, but it was really interesting when it came out. So the term Great Resignation, to start with, was coined in May 2021 by a man named Anthony Klotz, an associate professor of management at the University College London, where he predicted an exodus of mass American workers from their jobs prompted by burnout and the taste of freedom while working from home. So whilst there's been a lot of challenge and trauma and difficulty that came with the pandemic over the last couple of years, different things also came out of that time where people felt more in tune to what was really most meaningful to them. It sort of almost created a bit of a jolt, in people's understanding of what actually really matters most. And are they aligned with their work, with all other aspects of their lives? Do they feel aligned with their purpose? So the concept of quiet quitting, or also known as mentally checking out from work, is believed to have stemmed from Ting Pang, which is a now censored Chinese hashtag meaning lying flat, which was introduced in opposition to the country's pressurized work culture. So there's been, whether it's from America to China, there's been all over the world, there's been different influences that have come about in the last year or two that have really highlighted how people feel about what they want to gain from their work and what they think is important in terms of work culture. So this lying flat, it means you're not outright quitting your job, but you're just quitting the idea of going above and beyond. So you're still performing your duties, but you're no longer subscribing to the hustle culture mentality that work has to be your whole life. And of course, work and working cultures are different in different countries. So I'm just giving you a couple of examples here of what's come about. So many workers have been choosing to switch to a slower lane. And this isn't exclusively the behavior of the young. Research shows that older workers report being the least willing to come into the office, partly because they feel they can opt to work with a better balance remotely. So lots to digest there. And so it kind of leads to the purpose of what we're talking about, in that employee well-being is the new workplace imperative for all the reasons that I mentioned before around why engagement is so key and why it needs to be a priority, and how much it is really costing the economy effectively globally if we don't focus on well-being at work. So a philosophy at Karma is that we believe prevention is better than a cure. So our strapline is: a happy mind makes for a happy business. If you're supporting yourself holistically, nurturing your mental health and well-being, that has a direct impact on how effective and productive you feel in your work. So some of the statistics to share with you, just to highlight everything I've just framed the session with. So 1 in 6 people experience mental health problems in the workplace. This is a UK-based statistic. So around 14.7%, and 12.7% of all sickness absent days are attributed to poor mental health. So it is an increasing issue still. The reality is that better mental health support in the workplace can save UK businesses alone up to £8 billion annually. So this is, again, just the UK. So it really does beg the question what also you will be finding in different countries around the world. And from what I've been sharing just before, how different things are in different cultures. But there is a dramatic shift, no doubt about it, happening globally, as I've just been sharing. Also, promoting wellbeing at work consistently reduces presenteeism and absenteeism, as well as boosts long-term retention of staff. So presenteeism is where someone will be at work. They'll be present, but not really present mentally. So physically they'll be there, but mentally, it's almost like the quiet quitting element that I mentioned before, that sort of mentally checking out, just not being able to, but not necessarily in the kind of, you're feeling well, but you're checking out from really going above and beyond at work. It's more from a poor mental health perspective with presenteeism, that you feel like you're lacking in the mental capacity to really, put your efforts into your work in the way that you know that you can, because you're struggling, and absenteeism, being absent from work. So this is kind of the state of what currently mental health at work looks like. And the benefits of staff feeling mentally well at work are, of course, so full, and from various benefits, including increased productivity. So when people are feeling mentally well, when they're in a culture at work that supports and nurtures your well-being holistically, you're less likely to take sick days or need an extended period of time off due to stress and burnout. It also improves performance. So workplaces that empower good mental health are more likely to see employees take pride in their work and want to do the best that they can for their employees, for their colleagues, and their managers. And also a lower staff turnover. So when employees feel supported and empowered by their employer, this boosts happiness and motivation at work, and they're less likely to be seeking out other job opportunities. So that sort of sets the scene, hopefully, with the time that we have together today, in terms of what the state of the working world has been like over the last couple of years, in terms of what's come out from the pandemic, how people's priorities are shifting. And, whilst a healthy paycheck or a bonus, those kind of things are always welcome, we need to earn money, we need to contribute to the economy, and, and it's important to enjoy your work as much as possible. What studies are showing increasingly nowadays is a growing priority for workers is to feel like they're contributing to something bigger, like they are part of something where they feel valued, that it's meeting their basic human needs, that they feel understood, they feel appreciated, they feel valued for what they contribute, they feel heard, they feel seen, they feel listened to. That overarches so much of what helps people to feel happy at work. And then it's much more likely that those organizations that really make the investment, make the time, and put the energy into creating opportunities for their staff to feel well at work, it really shows in the return on that investment through, like I say, higher retention of staff over a long period of time, increased morale, productivity, loyalty, talent. The benefits just keep going. So let's just quickly also look at the impact of stress and burnout on people's mental health, because burnout has recently been cited by the World Health Organization as a global phenomenon, particularly in the workplace. So it's something that we do really need to understand, like what it actually is. So starting with stress, because we hear about stress and burnout collectively together quite a lot, but the reality is that they're two very different things. They're one and the same in the sense of they're part of that experience of stress, but how you experience stress is to different degrees and different levels. And burnout is a state of pure exhaustion, right? So the reality is that we all experience stress. What's stressful to one person might be different to another. And what's, positive for one person might be different to someone else. So we experience things in different ways because we're all completely unique beings, right? But anyone saying, oh, I don't get stressed, that's not necessarily true, because there's literally a part of the human brain, a central almond-shaped, small but very powerful part of the brain called the amygdala, which is where the stress response lives. So when we go through stress, we have that primary stress hormone cortisol that's released in the brain. We have a surge of adrenaline that pumps through our body, and it's essentially our body preparing us to face whatever the stressful event is that we're going through. Now, we experience stress to different degrees, right? So whilst we might not really notice or call what we're going through stress, the body goes through stress, but we just need to have ebbs and flows, ups and downs. We need to come out of stress states. We're not designed to be stressed out human beings a lot of the time, right? That's not conducive to healthy living, but also, motivation, concentration levels, etc. So yes, we might experience stress. And in some cases, it can boost us. It can give us a motivation. It can drive us to seek clarity on something or to overcome a challenge. And in some cases, it can get us out of danger. Say if you are walking across the road and you see a car tearing around the corner, that impulse that you have to step back and keep yourself safe, is your stress response firing off to tell you, be safe, get out the way. So if we didn't have that response in the brain, we'd just be like, oh, a car, cool, and dush, right? It wouldn't be very helpful for us. So the stress response has enabled the human species to survive up until today. But its primary focus and purpose is to keep us safe and away from danger. That's what it cares about, okay? So we need to manage stress because it's not the most logical part of our brain. It reacts, right? It's a very reactive part of the brain, which isn't always our most logical, rational thinking. So we need to create a bit of space to step back from stressful situations, whether that's through mindfulness-based activities, something we teach a lot at Karma, whether it's through meditation techniques, whether it's through organizing your time and doing things that you enjoy, just taking a moment to breathe. Yes, we breathe every day. It's a part of being human, but how we breathe makes a big difference in terms of how we feel and how we behave. So I'm talking here about conscious, deep breathing rhythms, slowly inhaling and releasing, choosing to actively focus on the breath to bring you into the present moment and focus on what you can control, not worrying about the past or future, which is very difficult, I appreciate, but really it's that art of practicing being in the present moment and being in here and now. There's so many benefits with that. It also calms your nervous system. It reduces the stress response in the brain. So there's so much to be said for even just taking a few moments to breathe deeply and calm your nerves. So whatever it is, taking a step back from stress is really important, because when we experience stress at a high level that keeps escalating, that's unresolved over a long period of time, that experience increases our fluctuations of anxiety levels. It can increase our mood issues and then eventually lead to burnout, which is where we feel mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausted, like a car running with no fuel, with no gas, right? It's just, there's nothing left to give. And we wouldn't expect that, right, of say other people, but for ourselves sometimes, because mental health is silent, you can't see it, it's not tangible, we can say, it's fine, I can keep going, I'll just keep going, I don't need to show everyone that I'm struggling, I just need to get this done. But in the long term, that's a detriment to us. So something that we've written about very extensively is burnout. And we pride ourselves on all the variety of resources that we have for this. So Karen, if you can please share in the comments box, the chat box, our blog, The 5 Stages of Burnout. Thank you. So please do read this when you get some time as well. Just put a little bit of time aside to read more in depth about this, because with the time that we have together today, can't go into too much detail, but this is based on the Winona State University study on burnout. Inspired by that study, we created these 5 stages, starting from the honeymoon phase, where there's sort of high job satisfaction or commitment, energy, but that can lead to an onset of stress, which is natural, but it's how do we deal with that stress? And if stress symptoms increase, it can lead to chronic stress. So you see what I mean? There's different tiers, there's different levels of experiencing stress states. And when you have a marked change in your stress levels and more intense symptoms, which we describe in the blog in more detail, this can lead to burnout, where the symptoms become a lot more critical and it's increasingly difficult to cope, which, if not managed, can lead to habitual burnout, which can lead to significant ongoing mental, physical, or emotional problems, more potentially even a diagnosed mental health condition. So really, it's about understanding when those markers, when those stresses start to come up, giving ourselves the permission to take a step back and pause, reboot, reflect on what you actually need. That's a really crucial point to prevent stress and burnout from escalating, right? So there's many different ways that you can do this. And we have a variety of different resources on our website as well that can support with that, whether it's one of our around 150 or so blogs, of which our highest performing one is the 5 Stages of Burnout. We have our podcast. We've got the Reignite Project, which is our big giving back campaign. It's an award-winning campaign that we run, where you can sign up for free and you watch a film as well, a 5-minute film interviewing people on their experience of recovering from burnout, and you receive a free 10-week burnout prevention strategy e-course. Now, so please do feel free to take advantage of that as well, and look into all the resources that we have on burnout prevention. So there's a great quote here, says, "The search for meaning has become far more apparent. There was a sense of our own mortality during the pandemic, something quite existential around people thinking, what should work mean for me?" So again, we're coming back to that meaning, so there's so many different experts within the space of education, with business development, that are all resonating with this same message about meaning and purpose in work. And when people are feeling empowered in their workplace and they're feeling like their employers are investing in their health and well-being and ensuring that their work environment nurtures that holistic way of taking care of yourself, then it reaps so many rewards, as I mentioned earlier. So some ideas for how you can implement this in the workplace. It does take an investment of time, money, resource, but the return on that investment is so far greater. Countless studies are showing this now. So at Karma, this is something we do specialize in, and our philosophy and values around our business and what we provide people with is education, community, and connection. And we really believe in those values as a collective and how they can benefit and impact people in a positive way in the workplace. So providing people with quality education and understanding mental health on a deep level. This is a quick insight today, which I hope has given you some really helpful insights, ideas, and resources that you can walk away from today feeling a bit more empowered and in control of your mental health and understanding mental health that bit more. But it is an incredibly complex topic, and it's still, the concept of it in the workplace is still fairly new, so to speak, and it's fairly misunderstood in many ways, and there's still a stigma attached to mental health. So it's so important to provide quality education on mental health, on understanding stress and burnout and the difference between the two, how it manifests, what you can do to prevent that from escalating. Don't wait for things to get to crisis point in your workplace, or at work in general if you work for yourself. Don't allow it to get to that point as much as you can, because trying to get back from that is so much harder. It's of course possible. The brain is designed for adaptability and for change, and you can bounce back even from a really challenging place. But to try and prevent that from even being an issue in the first place, what preventative measures can you put in place in your workplace culture now to keep ensuring that your workers are feeling productive, healthy, and happy? So nurturing that sense of community, that people are part of something great, that they're part of something together collectively, and boosting that connection as a team as well through your one-to-one meetings, through your team meetings, through social engagements that you do. So starting with that education, training opportunities for senior leaders, for managers, and for staff to really help people feel well informed about mental health at work. Wellbeing champions. So this is another scheme that we run too. So you work with a group of employee volunteers to create, implement, and build a long-term mental health strategy and policy, usually with support from either HR team and feeding back to the exec team so that senior leaders are aware of the developments with that. But again, this is the long-term goal that we're talking about here. Mental health isn't just a tick box exercise. You're talking about human behavior, how people feel, how they interact, how motivated they are at work. And no one person is the same. So how do you create a nurturing culture and environment at work that really empowers people and helps them feel supported, and knowing that there's a sense of ease and openness in relation to talking about mental health as well? So working, with a consultant or somebody who can support your mental health champions understand what their role is as champions, and from a health and safety perspective, either ensuring that they're trained in mental health first aid, which all of us are at Karma as well. We always advocate for that, or a form of mental health first aid training that can well inform them of a deeper understanding of mental health challenges and where to signpost people effectively should they have anyone come to them with issues, because they're not there to be experts and counselors and therapists. They're there to be champions of mental health and well-being. But that can be really empowering for the workplace. And when you're hiring new people, it's great to include this in the induction, to share and boast and tell people about all the great work that you're developing in your mental health culture at work. And finally, signposting. So having online materials, resources, and links to wellbeing support that's just ongoing, or whether it's an EAP program, employee assistance program, occupational health, other health providers that you've invested in at work that people can have access to should they need. So it's really looking at a holistic way of supporting your staff and having a holistic offering that help people to feel well connected and well supported at work. Okay, so a couple of questions just to leave you with to consider after this event today. In the era of hybrid working, what does work mean for me? So I'd really encourage you after this event, just take some time, take a few minutes with a pen and paper, get away from the screens for a few moments and just ask yourself that. Do a little bit of reflective journaling. What does work mean for me in this new era of work? And I appreciate you're all probably dialing in from different places and different industries, and some might require you to be in the office, some might be completely remote working, some might be a hybrid. So whatever that context is for you, what does that mean for you now? What does work mean for you? Because it's shifted. It has shifted a lot over the recent years. And finally, how can I empower my organisation to ensure a culture of connection as well as motivation? So I can't emphasize this enough. One person can make a really meaningful difference. Please don't feel if especially if you're not, say, in a managerial position or a senior leader position, that you can't make a difference, because you absolutely can. You can speak to your manager about it. You can speak to HR about it. You can speak to others at work. You can get a committee, a group together that want to champion mental health, and work together to look at what can be done, and feed that back to the exec team, because you're all working together. Workplaces are about the people. The people are what make businesses successful. So you're all part of something really meaningful together. And so you can make a big difference. And if you are in a senior position, you can absolutely make a big difference as well. What I see, having done this work for the past 5-6 years, trained hundreds of organizations through various workplace training programs and consultancy, I consistently see that getting that buy-in, getting that encouragement from the top down makes a huge difference. It makes the world of difference, but it can start with just one person, anyone in the organization wanting to make that change. Okay, so hopefully a couple of helpful reflective questions for you to consider, and would love to stay connected with you, of course. So as I mentioned, we specialize in a suite of mental health training programs and wellbeing champions consultancy. So Karen can kindly just share in the chat box, if she hasn't already, the link to what's on the screen now, so you can find out more about our mental health training programs, our champions program, and also, Karen, if you can please share the blog that we shared yesterday, or last week even, for yesterday, which was World Mental Health Day. So do feel free to check out that blog as well this week, and it's all about how you can look after your mental health at work. So lots more resources on there for you to get stuck into after this event today. We have the Positive Mental Health podcast called Take Regular Breaks. We launched season 3 last week. Woohoo! So we're very happy and excited about that, and we're releasing a new episode every Monday. So you can enjoy that between now and the festive holidays over the next 12 weeks. And so the first episode that went out was about creating healthy habits that stick, with a behaviour change specialist, Dr. Heather McKee, which was wonderful. And then yesterday we released an episode with Joe Kaplan at Outfly Innovation, where he talked about authenticity in the workplace. So really amazing topics that we're exploring this season. And we've got 2 other seasons for you to get stuck into. We're also on social media, on LinkedIn and Twitter, This Is Karma and Tania Diggory, and on Instagram at This Is Karma. So really love to stay in touch with you all. We will share the recording of this in a newsletter tomorrow, so please do keep an eye on your inbox, especially the spam folder, because that can be a bit pesky sometimes, and emails can just filter into there. So please do keep an eye out for our newsletter tomorrow. And also Karen, my lovely colleague, will share her email address in the chat box. So if you'd like to drop her an email and myself an email, I've got my email on the screen here as well. We'd love to hear from you. So please let us know if there's any way that we can support you and your organisation to empower mental health in the workplace. And as I always say at our events, here's to your inner and outer success, not just what people see on the outside, but what's also going on the inside. So thank you very much, everybody. I'm just going to come out of screen share now. And we are just pretty much dead on time. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. So yes, I'm just catching up with a few of the comments.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Who's that speaking? Sorry,
this is Al from London.
Hi, Al. I was just looking at a couple of your messages. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. Lovely presentation and delivery. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just wanted to find out how are you different from the MHFA, so Mental Health First Aid England?
Yes, that's a great question. So what we pride ourselves on is we offer applied workplace mental health training. So we offer information, and we do training on the most common mental health conditions you're more likely to come across in a workplace context, with signposting, with all the latest signposting that people need to know. But we help champions understand what is their role as a champion, what are they not, what is the difference between the two, how can they contribute, what initiatives could they do in their workplace. So it's a blend of applied workplace mental health training, where we actually go into the practicalities of using all the knowledge that they gain from understanding mental health from a wide perspective, and how they support people effectively without stepping into the role of being an expert, because they shouldn't step into that role from a health and safety perspective. So how they signpost effectively, but then what do they do to contribute in their workplace as a champion, and how do they empower people to support themselves and support each other? So it's a kind of a blend of theory, but also a lot of practical elements involved, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
No
So,
problem.
so can you actually come into the workplace? I work for the government, so can you actually come into the workplace and speak to us about mental health champions and how to go about it, stuff like that?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're very happy to do that. Do you want to just share your email address, please, in the comments to me directly, and then we'll drop you an email.
Okay. Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you so much. Just checking if there were any other comments that came through. The name of the podcast, David, so that was Take Regular Breaks. Thank you. Just checking. Thank you so much for the lovely comments. That's really, really kind. Thanks, Ben, for sharing the name of the podcast too. So thank you, everyone. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to stick around a little bit longer. But we have wrapped up, so I'm just going to stop the recording there as well.